All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're exploring one of the most critical times in a child's life, what we call the school-age years. We're talking about that window from age 6 to 12, a period of just incredible growth and change that really does set the foundation for everything that comes next.
It's kind of a funny stage, right? They're not toddlers anymore, that's for sure, but they're not quite teenagers either. They're in this unique in-between world. This is the bridge they cross to get to adolescence, and it's on this bridge that they build the skills, the friendships, and the sense of self they'll need for the future. So let's dig into what that journey really looks like.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll look at their developing minds and social lives, then their physical growth, we'll cover health and safety must-knows, and finally, we'll talk about what healthcare looks like for this group. Okay, first up, let's get into their heads. There are some huge changes happening cognitively and socially. This is really when they start to figure out who they are outside of the family unit. You know, the famous psychologist Erik Erikson had a perfect name for this stage: industry versus inferiority. And it's all about that word, industry. Kids this age have this deep, driving need to do stuff, to build things, to learn skills, to complete a task and feel proud of it. When they succeed, they get this amazing sense of competence, of industry. You've seen that look on a kid's face when they finally ride a bike without training wheels? That's it right there. That's industry in action. And right alongside that, there's a massive cognitive leap happening. Jean Piaget called it the concrete operations stage. And honestly, it's a total game changer. For the first time, logical, organized thought just clicks. It's why they can suddenly follow the rules of a game, actually understand why 2 + 2 = 4, and even start to see things from someone else's point of view. Their world becomes so much more rational. And you can totally see this new logical thinking pop up in how they play. Play isn't just about doing your own thing next to another kid anymore. No way. It becomes cooperative. It becomes competitive. From 6 to 9, it's all about board games, riding bikes, things with rules. And as they get older, that evolves into even more complex things like organized sports. Team play becomes everything because now they have the mental tools to work together toward a common goal. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about their physical development. While their minds are just racing, their bodies are on a much different schedule. A slow, steady growth that's getting them ready for the big changes coming in adolescence. So weight-wise, you're not going to see those huge baby growth spurts. Instead, it's a steady climb of about 2 to 3 kilograms a year, which is roughly 4.5 to 6.5 pounds. It's consistent, it's predictable, and it's exactly what should be happening.
And it's pretty much the same story for their height. You can expect about 5 centimeters or 2 inches a year. This slow and steady pace is perfect because it gives them time to get used to their growing bodies and really fine-tune all those motor skills they're learning.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. We have this period called prepubescence. It's like the warm-up act for puberty. It happens for about 2 years before the main event, and it's when the hormones start to kick in. For girls, you might see this start around age 9. For boys, it's usually a bit later, closer to 12. It's the very first subtle sign that the transition to adolescence is beginning. And of course, you can't talk about physical changes without talking about teeth. This is the era of the tooth fairy, when those permanent teeth finally start making their appearance. And because these are the teeth they'll have for the rest of their lives, it's an absolutely crucial time to lock in good brushing and flossing habits.
So this brings us to the practical side of things. How do we keep them healthy and safe through all this growth? It all comes down to having a solid blueprint for their well-being.
It might sound basic, but the 2 pillars are nutrition and sleep. A good, balanced diet is the fuel for their bodies and their brains. And sleep, it's non-negotiable. We're talking 9 to 12 hours a night. That's when their brain sorts through everything they learned that day. And it's when their body does the heavy lifting of growing.
Now, as these kids get more independent, riding bikes around the neighborhood, joining sports teams, safety becomes a huge topic. Their world gets bigger, and so do the potential risks. Things like falls from bikes or injuries during sports are by far the most common concerns. But we also have to stay on top of things like car safety, making sure they're in the right booster seat, and water safety, because even a good swimmer needs supervision.
All right, for our last section, let's peek behind the curtain at what a healthcare visit looks like for a school-aged kid. Knowing what's going on can make the whole experience so much better for them and for you. Here's a quick look under the hood at what clinicians are checking for. A typical heart rate, for example, is somewhere between 60 and 110 beats per minute when they're resting. This table gives you a snapshot of the normal ranges for vital signs, giving healthcare providers a clear baseline to make sure everything's running smoothly.
But more important than the numbers is the approach. You have to remember,
These kids are old enough to understand what's happening. So, the best thing you can do is involve them. Let them listen to their own heart. Explain what you're doing in simple language. Give them privacy and praise them for being cooperative. It all builds trust and makes the whole thing way less scary.
And if they need medication, well, the goal is always to give it orally if possible. It's just less intimidating. Luckily, a lot of meds come in liquids or chewables. If a shot is absolutely necessary, the most common spots for this age group are the deltoid muscle in the arm or the bigger muscles in the hip or thigh.
This entire approach, all of these little things, they all roll up into this one really important principle called atraumatic care. The whole point is to do everything you can to reduce stress, both physical and psychological. It's about making healthcare a neutral or even positive experience instead of a scary one.
So when you put it all together, these school-age years are truly the foundation-building years. This is when kids build their sense of self-worth, they build real friendships, and they build the physical and mental skills they're going to rely on for the rest of their lives.
And that kind of leaves us with a final big question. As this age of industry, this time of building and doing wraps up, all those things they've built, the confidence, the friendships, the skills, they become the tools in their toolkit. And how will they use that toolkit to take on their next big project, the search for identity that defines the teenage years?